Hello to all of you. I'm honored to be here with you. Honored to be one of you. And thank you so much for being here and for supporting me. My name is Sarah Garrison, and I am talking about breaking through the secrecy. Um, Women are amazing secret keepers. I think in a lot of ways, we owe ourselves a lot of credit for that. More than that, we really need to stop in to be able to support each other, to be there to each other, for each other, to understand each other, to support each other. We really need to break through all that secrecy. So right now and forevermore, I give everyone watching permission to never keep secrets again. No one's going to judge you. I'm certainly not. Most likely, whatever secrets you're holding on to are secrets that I've experienced myself and secrets that I certainly understand and would be able to be there for you and support you with, about, and through. So, why am I here? What am I here to talk about? I grew up in a very interesting family. I grew up being told that we had the perfect nuclear family. I had two parents, happened to be a mother and father. I had one older sister. I was the younger sister. And we projected to the world that we were absolutely the most perfect family you could ever meet. To the outside world, we absolutely were. Um, we would go out as a family every Friday. We'd go to dinner and a movie. My at least one parent would be there if I was at a piano recital or had a horse show or had some kind of performance at school or at church. Everyone really thought we were perfect, perfectly happy, and an amazing, loving family inside the house. And when we were around just family, it turned out things were very different. When I was young, I really couldn't put my finger on that. I just knew, I remember distinctly at age maybe 3 or 4, absolutely knowing that something just wasn't right. Something did not match up. And what was being put out there to the rest of the world really wasn't accurate and wasn't true. Um, One of my earliest memories is walking into the kitchen, and I remember seeing my mom standing at the kitchen counter, just sobbing, uncontrollably crying. And as a 3 or 4 year old, that that is traumatizing. You're the mom. You're not supposed to cry. You're the one who's supposed to help me when I'm sad and I'm not okay. What on earth could happen to make you not okay? And I asked her, I said, Mommy, what is wrong? What's wrong? I was frightened. I was panicked. She looked at me and I could tell she was trying to decide whether or not to tell me. And if she told me, what she should say. And what she did get out and tell me was, your father just wouldn't let me stay in bed. Um, my mom did everything. She did everything for my sister and myself. She did all the cooking. She did all the lunch packing. She cooked dinner. She did all the dishes. She cleaned the house. I think the one contribution my dad really did was taking out the trash, which, has its value. I do appreciate that. Um, and but that memory of my mom saying that about my dad, it immediately clicked in my head. You know what? My dad is not a good person. If he's going to do something to hurt my mom, he is someone to really look out for and someone to really keep an eye on. And that gut feeling at age 3 was incredibly accurate. Um, Years later, my just seeing the relationship of my parents together, um, very codependent people. My mom absolutely loved my father. She absolutely did. I'd like to think that my dad loved my mom and as well as my sister and I as well as he could. I just don't know that he really had the ability to love us the way that we needed to be loved. Um, And it really didn't occur to me to talk to people about that. That was just the way it was and something that I lived through and experienced. Um, my dad could definitely get angry. The women in the house were not allowed to get angry. The few occasions I remember truly being angry with him and expressing anger, he would simply turn his back and walk away and wouldn't speak to me for days at a time. Um, because of the incongruency in my relationship model between my parents, um, of course, I did not pick the best men in my life. Um, I was molested by my step grandfather when I was young. So was my older sister. She didn't tell anyone until she was in high school. Um, I was raped by a man I thought I knew very well when I was in college. Um, and interestingly enough, this was a man I was incredibly attracted to and was thrilled when we started seeing each other. And, again, looking back on that, how could I have expected anything different from myself when men a man truly is different than what he presents to the world? My father happens to be a classic narcissist. If you have one of those in your life, it is a tough ride. Um, you're not going to fix it. You are not going to fix it. What you get to do is take care of yourself, love yourself, and to the extent that you're able to tolerate the narcissist in your life, good for you for making that happen. Um, I'll speak a little bit more about my history and we'll come back to the narcissism. Um, I had just graduated college and I lived with the same three women all through my college years. We're still very good friends to this day, which I've come to learn is fairly unusual. Um, I was about to move into a different house because my three female roommates had the nerve to graduate and actually move away from the amazing college town we lived in. I was a bit smarter than that. I figured out I could stick around, work there, and pretend I was still a college kid for a while, which is exactly what I did. And it was amazing. So I was about to move out of an apartment that I had lived in for 3 years with the same three women. And I was about to move into a house with four gentlemen who were going to be seniors in college that year. I didn't grow up with any brothers. I did have male friends, never lived with a man before. So I was definitely in for a treat. Um, I had an amazing time. I had so much fun that the following year, after living with those four men, I moved into a different house with five men. Um, they were going to be seniors that year as well. At that point, I did start feeling a bit old. Still living in a college town, being 2 years beyond my senior year. But those, in a lot of ways, were two of the very best years of my life. And I was incredibly blessed to be surrounded by those men. Um, because literally the day before I moved in with my first group of male roommates, my father, he didn't even tell me. Um, he handed me a letter, and the two words I saw were I saw a woman's name and I saw the word pregnant. And my father had apparently met and then fallen in love with a prostitute. Um, I don't hold anything against her. Women do what they need to survive. Um, fell in love with her. He moved her into one of the apartments. My parents um, owned apartments at that time. He moved her into one. I'm honestly not sure how long they were seeing each other, but obviously they were not using any protection, and this woman became pregnant. So that entire year, I would get updates and phone calls from my mother, who did not leave my father. And it seemed like every time I answered the phone, the news was worse. Um, the baby that came of this relationship was born almost 3 months premature. Um, the his birth mother had been doing drugs throughout the pregnancy, and he was in the neonatal ICU for months and months. Um, Throughout his life, he continued occupational therapy, speech therapy. Because he was intubated, he had a distinct fear and aversion to chewing and swallowing solid foods, just because he was convinced he would choke to death. Um, my mother, being much more of an amazing person than I would have been in this situation, I guess, depending on your definition of amazing, she never left my father. They never divorced. I don't know that they even really talked about separating. And she adopted that baby. That baby is now 22 years old and is my brother. Um, I was the most outspoken and honest about my feelings toward my father and what he had done, what he had put my mother through. His big plan was to not tell anyone. Um, he wasn't going to tell anyone that that was his child. He wasn't going to tell anyone that he got another woman pregnant. And one of the few times my mom actually stood up to my dad, she said, "No, you will tell people. Otherwise, they will assume that one of your daughters had this baby." Um, so he did start to tell people. And I, I believe only one couple who was friends with my parents decided they were no longer going to be friends with them. My mother had an amazing support group that stood by her. And of course, this baby, who was not biologically of my mom, things were going to be different with this one. They agreed my dad was going to be the primary caretaker. He was going to be the one to feed this little boy, bathe this little boy, change this little boy's diaper, call and schedule the doctor appointments, rock him and put him to sleep. I think that lasted for about a week and a half, if even that. Um, and of course, my mom, being the amazing caregiver she was, um, she took on everything with that little one as well. Um, I can't blame her. She's a great mom. And my brother had an amazing, amazing mother. Um, so my mom remained dedicated to my father and her new son for the rest of her life. Sadly, at the end of 2016, my mom passed away very suddenly and unexpectedly. She had a severe brain bleed. And because she was on blood thinners to prevent a blood clot, she was not able to be saved. Um, and at one therapy appointment, I mentioned to my dad, you know what, this, as heartbreaking as this really is a huge, huge opportunity for you. You really, instead of being the director, the disciplinarian, the enforcer, you now have the opportunity to be a true caregiver and to love your children. And he couldn't do it. Within months, he was dating another woman, and within less than a year, I may be off a little bit there. Um, they very, very quickly to me, they became engaged and are now married. Um, Of course, the woman that my father got pregnant was not the only woman he had cheated on my mom with. At one point, he had joked with my sister that he had cheated on my mother with between 2 and 52 women. And he thought that was just hilarious. I didn't. Um, In my mind at that time, that was the ultimate betrayal. I worked in women's healthcare for a long time, and in my mind, unprotected sex meant you were exposing my mother, the most important person in my life, to all kinds of sexually transmitted infections, including HPV, which can develop into cervical cancer, and potentially HIV as well. To me, he was flagrantly disregarding the possibility that he could kill my mother. Um, but because I dared to be honest about my feelings to my family, and especially to my father, I became the black sheep, the outcast. I was the one who was difficult to be around. Um, my dad felt like he was walking on eggshells being around me at that time, which I found very interesting because for my entire life, all the women in my family have been walking on eggshells around my father. Um, his anger was frightening. Um, he never struck me. He never struck my sister. He did come close with each of us at least once, but that never happened. Um, we were expected to be perfect. We were expected to be straight A students. We were expected to be ladies. We were expected to be polite. Um, if we, when when my sister and I started dating, only judgment from my dad about anyone we chose to spend our time with, and interestingly enough, my sister developed into a woman who always needed to be in a relationship. And I developed into a woman who was the complete opposite. And I would much prefer to be alone than to be dating someone just to be with someone. Um, I am 46 years old. I've never been married because I refuse to marry someone like my father. And that is a hard thing to say. Um, I can't deny my father did some amazing things for my family. Um, but most of them were, it was the stuff, it was the things, it was the trips, it was, it was about appearances. It was not about substance. It wasn't about love and really getting to know each other. Um, to this day, my father has no idea who I am. I don't think he knows what my favorite color is. I don't think he knows what my interests are. I'm not even sure that he knows who my good friends are. I don't even think he could name any of them. Um, and that is really too bad. Um, things really came to a head with me when I saw my father around his new girlfriend. Um, I think it was about 6 months after my mom had passed away. And my father couldn't call to tell me, and my sister called to tell me that he had developed stage 3 throat cancer. So I had just lost my mother, and I was now facing the true reality of also losing my father. Um, my sister spent that entire summer at my dad's house, taking care of him, taking him to all of his appointments. He was on a feeding tube, so prepping his meals, getting those to him, crushing his medications, which were substantial, getting them to him through his feeding tube. Um, I took when her summer was up and she had to go back to work. I did have emergency sick leave available to me. So I took 3 months off of work, and it was then my turn to go take care of our father. Um, I really learned a lot during those 3 months, and his narcissism knew no bounds. His new girlfriend went with us to every chemo appointment, every appointment with his oncologist, every appointment with his cardiologist, every appointment with his his swallow therapy when he was able to try to learn to swallow water and eat solid food again. Um, she was always there. She was always at the house. Um, and one of the most hurtful things was my dad would be just dead to the world, exhausted, because chemo and radiation will definitely do that to you. Um, as soon as his girlfriend walked into the room, he was wide awake. He was alert. He was smiling. He was charming. He was funny. He was telling jokes. He was telling stories. When it was just my dad and myself, or when it was my dad, myself, and maybe my sister was down to visit for a weekend, none of that happened. He barely spoke to us. Um, Taking care of my dad for the 3 months my sister took care of him, the 3 months I took care of him, it was a 6 a.m. to midnight job every day for 3 months. It was exhausting. And I can't tell you how difficult it was to be stuck in that place of obviously wanting your dad to be okay, wanting to continue having a parent who was alive, and being so incredibly crushed and hurt that he was treating this new woman so much better than I'd ever seen him treat my mother. Um, she was the priority. She was what made him smile. My sister and I weren't able to do that. Um, and again, I was very honest with my dad about my feelings, and that did not work out well for me. A narcissist is either going to be the hero or the victim. And I know my dad was ready to be the hero because fortunately, he did survive his cancer. Um, but when I let him know how upset I was that my mom's ashes were on a bookshelf in his bedroom for almost 2 years, because my mom had repeatedly said, I do not want to be on a shelf. I do not want to be on a shelf. Um, he didn't like that. He didn't like hearing that. And what he said to me was, but I like having her there. I I talk to her. I talk to her when I need her. And I thought, well, of course you do, because that's what you did for your entire relationship. She was there and ready and waiting for you when you needed her. And when you were done with her, you put her back on the shelf and you went about living whatever kind of life you wanted to live with whatever women you wanted to live it with. Um, he didn't respond to that very well. And I, I really held out hope that of all the things that he broke my mother's heart about, all the other women, getting another woman pregnant, not appreciating the amazing woman that she was, um, not being willing to go to church with her on Sundays just to sit there with her and hold her hand. Um, I thought at least he could love and respect my mother enough that she would be the only woman he would ever be married to. But no, he proposed to his girlfriend and they got married. Um, Being the secret keeper that he is, I'm quite certain my dad's wife doesn't know where my little brother came from, doesn't know the circumstances, doesn't know much of anything about all the other women he'd been with outside of his relationship with my mom. Um, he showers her with jewelry, he showers her with trips and vacations. Um, the last 25 years of her life, I know he didn't give my mom any jewelry. Um, and in fact, the man, he really kept his entire life a secret. He never told me anything about his life growing up, as many times as I asked him. Um, and the things that my mom let my sister and I know, that when it was time and when she was gone, the things, we were very clear on the things that she wanted us to have. And when we spoke to my dad about that, His response was, well, no. Who paid for those things? Those are my things. Those are my things. I'll use them more than you ever will. And Carol and I are going to enjoy those things together. Oh, shoot. I didn't mean to say her name. Sorry. Um, he and his new girlfriend, fiance, now wife, um, would enjoy those things together. And obviously, I'm talking about my mom's jewelry, but I'm talking about dishes and mementos, things that were gifted to her by her mother. Um, a measuring cup that her grandmother had given to her. Nothing extravagant, but things that held so many memories. And most of those memories were things my dad never participated in. So his selfishness with hanging on to those things was, again, incredibly hurtful. Um, my dad managed to borrow a lot of money from his, I believe she was his fiance at that point. Um, and at one point when I was visiting him, um, she and I had some time alone together. And I said to her, just please do not lend my father any more money. I'm sure he has every intention of paying you back. It's questionable if that will actually happen because my dad is not good with money. He never has been. She, of course, ran straight to my father. I didn't know she had done this. He ignored me in his own house for the next 3 days, which worked out okay because I got to spend a lot of time with my brother. And then when he did sit me down, finally, to talk at me, um, this was when I did the best job of standing up for myself. He talked at me for about an hour and a half. And when I started responding, he kept trying to cut me off. And I would simply calmly hold up my hand and say, you know what? I listened to you speak for a very long time, and I deserve the respect of you hearing my response. And at one point, he got incredibly angry and got forward in his chair and really started to get in my face. And again, I said, you know what? If we're not going to talk calmly about this, then this conversation is over. Um, After that conversation, my dad hasn't spoken to me in 2 years. I have intently worked with a counselor and therapist, um, and we've really tried. About 6 months ago, she looked at me and she said, you know what, Sarah, you have worked really hard. You've worked through a lot of incredibly hurtful and heartbreaking things, and you have really tried to to remain as open and available as you emotionally can to your father, and it's not working. And sadly, my honest reaction to that was, you know what? I'm okay with that. I am okay with that. I don't need a man in my life who rules with an iron fist and never respected my mother, has no, really has never and has no plan to ever listen to or respect my feelings on anything. And doing my best to be okay with that. It's easier some days than others. Um, it's honestly been incredibly empowering for me. It's not the path I would have chosen to feel empowered, but I've had the opportunity to say, you know what? The kind of love you have to give is not the kind of love that works for me. Um, Working with, if you are able to be different, accept me for who I am, if we can have an honest relationship, you know what? Great. Let's make that happen. Um, but you're the parent and you get to fix this. It's not my job. Um, in whatever ways he's unable to love me, it's not my job to fix that. That is his stuff and it's not about me. And shoot, I know I am at my 30 minutes. I really just want to end this by saying It doesn't matter who the person in your life, if they're not serving your best interest, not allowing you to feel loved, not allowing you to feel like that divine spark of God-like light that you truly are, you don't need them. You can be kind. You don't need to bend over backwards. You don't need to please them. You don't need to stress about whether or not they are happy with your life choices. Your only job is you. And the more you take care of yourself, whether it's counseling, body work, energy work, Reiki, intuitive healings, you get to make that happen. And if you have not already started that, I challenge you to start that today because you are loved, you deserve to be loved, and you are amazing. Please don't hold in your secrets. Please be open about them. I have a feeling a lot of people watching this, the story is very familiar to them too. Um, don't keep it a secret if you've been violated by another person, whether emotionally, physically, sexually, if you've lost a child, if you've experienced a miscarriage. Women feel those things incredibly deeply, and we deserve to talk about them and get support in those things. So, my loving challenge to you is to make that happen. Um, Again, I'm Sarah Garrison. I'm thrilled to be a part of She Is Me, and I am so impressed and amazed that you are all here as well. Thank you so very much.